Welcome to the Venture Vault. I'm Michael Benatar, and today I'm super excited to talk to Olga Topchaya. She's the founder and CEO of Lapis AI Consultants, and I'm super excited. This is a big topic going on right now. Everybody's trying to use AI. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So I guess the first question is, how did you kind of get involved into this company, and how are you implementing a lot of AI? And you don't have to go over all of it, but how did you start implementing AI in some companies at first?
Sure. So, how I got into AI, I was on parental leave.
Okay.
And at the time that I decided I was ready to go back to work, it was like the worst tech recession. And I had been in tech at that point for a number of years. So I'm like, all right, let me take a step back from this and give it a few minutes or a few months
Sure.
to cool off and try something else. And I discovered it was back then it was called GPT-3.
Hmm.
So it's a very rudimentary version in comparison to what we're
Sure.
seeing in AI today. And I knew right away. I knew that it was going to be something really big. And so I decided, let me just learn everything I can about it. So I started talking to people. Again, it was on parental leave, so I had
Yeah.
some a little bit of extra time, not a
Sure.
ton, because 16-hour shift. But
Yeah.
um, so I started talking to people, started reading about it, and just started using it. And then I got a contract as a prompt engineer for Copy AI. That was kind of my foot in the door. And then I got another contract after that at an AI company on the product management side and product marketing side. That's my background. And then I landed another contract, right? So
Cool.
I just kept getting these kind of contracts because nobody was hiring full time, but plenty of people were interested in contractors.
Hmm.
And I decided, all right, so now it's time to start my own company.
Yeah.
So I had, overall knowledge of AI. My background, like I said, is in product management and marketing. So I had the business piece, but I was missing the technical piece. And that's when I decided, all right, I need to bring on some actual AI engineers so that we can offer really a full service
Hmm.
consultancy where we can start focusing on the business aspect for a company and what it is that they want to do. And then once we have a very solid understanding, then we can actually go and build it for them.
You,
So
uh,
that's,
yeah, no, I mean, that's great. I mean, it's crazy because I remember using Copy AI, I felt like was the first initial kind of like AI tool to help you write a few things. Like very
yeah,
briefly, like, oh, I'm going to write like a social media post. Can you help me do this? Or can you prompt do something like that? And it was very like dumb compared to today, and it wasn't even that long ago. But that was like my first use case of using AI in kind of a very simple way. And that's cool that you were working there. That's
yeah,
that really felt like to me the first step into it, because everybody would talk about, like, I would hear GPT, like, what is all this? Like, I don't know what's going on. It's just like, I just use Copy AI. That's what I knew.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah, so you're probably using a bunch of templates that I wrote. So
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And so today, I mean, AI, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, we saw, whatever it's called, Soria or something with the video AI that's unreleased
Flora.
yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that looks crazy. And then you hear like studios are like, hey, we're actually putting a pause on any production studios because we might just use this, because it looked good. It looked really good.
It's good. It is. It's
And I
very good.
mean, the future is going to be wild, but here we are today. We're in early 2024. How have you seen some of the just the simple ways people are introducing AI into some companies? Because I've seen, people build custom GPTs, and on ChatGPT you can build like your own like little versions of it, which are pretty good. But I've never gone deeper to figure out how do I make my like full-time assistant like over here, so I can just say like, okay, can you take care of this or help me do this? But how have you seen some of the implementation so far into kind of small businesses?
Sure. So one of the most common and I think useful ways is implementing it with your own data, with your own
Mhm.
documents. And we are now before, you when you were using some form of AI, it had to be like very structured
Yeah.
information, tables, or it had to be very, very structured. But right now, the capabilities are way beyond that. So you can implement it with documents that contain images, that contain tables, and we can do that, right?
Hmm.
So implementing it with your documents, so you can ask questions of your actual knowledge base, your own custom knowledge base. It can be anything from helping with employee onboarding
Hmm.
to employee improvement, right? Having them learn new topics, creating reports, it's really great for especially companies that are like heavy on paper and heavy on documents, right? So
Yeah.
anything from construction to real estate, legal, right, medical. So you can really get a lot of synthesis in a very short time frame. Otherwise, you would have spent hours and hours
Yeah.
reading through all this
And it
paperwork.
and it's so crazy too. Like, I was trying to figure out inventory for my company. I'm like, okay, I have subscriptions going, I have projected like velocity of sales, and I literally just downloaded all the shipments and everything into GPT, and it popped out. I asked it a few questions and it just started giving me all this information like, oh yeah, in the next 3 months you're going to need this many. And it's crazy what you can do. And are you on your team, are you guys helping build like custom platforms for these companies or integrating it somehow? Because I think that's the one step where I'm a little lost on. Like, I use Notion for a lot of my projects and a lot of my work. And I know they have like some elementary, like, AI in there, and you can kind of ask it a few questions. I don't think it's as good as some of the other stuff out there.
Yeah.
But are you helping build it? Because I know like Gemini and there's a few other ones, but where and how do you implement that? Because yeah, it's a hard one to figure out.
So the short answer is yes, we do build custom SaaS products. I would strongly advise against putting all of that information into ChatGPT and asking it
Mhm.
to give you an output. And the reason is that because it's going to hallucinate a lot. And so what we do is we use methodologies that greatly reduce this
Mm.
hallucination risk. So, ChatGPT, I think the accuracy is like 70% or something like that, right? We can get it up to like 90%, right? So
Mhm.
that's a huge, huge improvement.
And you can see
Maybe even
that.
more in some instances,
Yeah,
depending
and you can see
depending on
that
what
too.
it.
Even if you ask it the same question over and over again, it sometimes gives you totally different answers for
Well, the
different
answers
things.
are intended to be different, right?
Yeah.
The way that it's presenting the information, but it shouldn't be like first it says yes and then it says no,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
should be like complete polar opposites, and that's a risk that you have if you're just using like upload your document to ChatGPT, right? So that's what we do, and then we can layer all kinds of different features on top of that. You want to use it to like fill out a form, for example, right? Some of our clients, again, that are very heavy on paper,
Mhm.
they need to spend hours and hours and hours filling out forms, and so we can automate that process with an LLM. And then there's just a human that still you want to always have a human that goes
Sure.
through it and responds. So that's one way to do it. Another thing is, I mentioned training materials, cross-functional collaboration. So it's really, really good at explaining very complex topics
Mhm.
in simple terms and simple terms that specifically will resonate with an individual. So when you're, in a type of company that has a ton of meetings, right, and cross-functional collaboration, which is like 80% of companies out
Yeah.
there, and the meetings are endless. And part of the reason that the meetings are endless is because people just don't speak each other's language.
Uh-huh.
If you implement an LLM into that process to help the person, help a marketer understand some of the legal ramifications, help a lawyer understand a marketer, right?
Yeah.
Help a marketer understand an engineer in some of the complex tech language. So that's another possible way where companies can really save a lot of time.
And
Um,
do you have like for, personally for me, I've been always like messing around with it. Social media is really easy. Like if you want to build like a little template real quick, but the one that I've been looking for is almost like an assistant AI that can kind of help me with my day-to-day stuff. Like look at my schedule and say, hey, you got all these things today. Do you want to do anything else? Or can I read this document? Or can it read my email? Like I've been really messing just with different ideas, and it's helped me a ton. Like even, I have a email marketing agency, and I love just getting even ideas from there. Like, hey, what holidays are coming up? What can I kind of like craft this towards? How can I write it? In what fun ways? You can put the information, like, here's the website, look at the website. And it's fun,
Yeah.
but I'm guessing, how do I get off ChatGPT? How do I just have something on my desktop or have another platform? Because I've used the Gemini, and I feel like there's another one that I used. I forgot what it was called, but it was
Maybe
Claude
Claude.
AI.
Claude,
Claude
yeah.
was,
Claude is
I really
great.
liked Claude
Claude
was
is
really
really good.
good.
Yeah.
It was surprising, actually.
Yeah, especially for the writing, it tends
Hmm.
to default to active voice versus ChatGPT, which goes to passive and
Yeah.
makes the writing horrible. But the
Yeah.
writing for Claude is really great. Yeah.
And you can see sometimes when somebody's like sending you an email that they might have generated in ChatGPT, and it sounds very like,
Hmm.
hi, thank you. Blah, blah, blah. It's like
Right, right,
very,
right. It's
yeah,
very wordy. Yeah.
yeah, very wordy.
So, which is why it's important to learn some of the prompt engineering techniques, even like
Hmm.
at a very, very basic level. You don't need to know code in any way. And that'll help you with how you're using these language models. But to answer your question, how do you get off ChatGPT? Well,
Yes.
there are a number of tools that are out there already, right? So if it's something very basic, like right now, Gemini actually recently, I don't know if it's to everyone, but I saw that at least to a portion of people in beta, they've released the ability that you can talk to your emails, right? And have it
Mm,
write an email for you based on context and all the information that it already knows about you based on your email, which is a lot.
yes.
So that is something that just came out, nothing to do with ChatGPT, that's Gemini. Uh, what
And
was
what
the
do you
other
think of,
use case? I think you were
well,
asking for documents.
just like almost like an assistant, like the check-in, like, hey Mike, like what's going on today? Like, here's your layout of like items to do, almost because I've hired people overseas before, and it's almost like they're so great, but they're so costly. So it's like, how can I reduce cost and get something that's like almost, simple enough to give me a good outline of certain things to do, or helping me respond to things, or I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to figure out other use cases for it. And even I don't use Microsoft that much, but I've heard Microsoft Copilot's really
Copilot.
good in like Word and Excel. And I know Google has like a plugin you can get ChatGPT with. But I guess there's so many possibilities. That's kind of the hard part about it. Cause like I have a small business, and I'm like, how do I implement this more? Like I don't even know. And I guess that's the question. Like if you had a business today that say, I sell products online, what are some other use cases you've seen, or things that I haven't even thought of that you could implement or help other businesses do? Because I think that's the hard part. Like even my wife works for a large company, and they kind of like AI integrated a little bit, but like more like for fun. Like, oh yeah, you can like help prompt this or do that.
Right.
But like for them, they could probably use somebody to help them like integrate all the documents and all this information and onboarding.
Exactly. So
But like, yeah,
information synthesis is a huge aspect, right? Like so what I talked about with uploading your own documents. Sure, you can ask questions,
hmm,
but you can also have it summarize or paraphrase
yeah,
very, very high level insights for your stakeholders, for example. Have it create reports. You don't need to go through all of these documents and
yeah,
gather all of this information. That's one way. Ideation is also a really big one, is help, like you said, coming up with some ideas and what it is that you can do for the day or something like
hmm,
that. um let's see, learning, as I mentioned, that's huge. For a business owner, you can, again, employee onboarding, I just keep coming back to that because companies
yeah.
spend so much time.
I know.
um Even like the small businesses, right? Like you have to teach a new employee, and there's a lot of friction, right? You put in your own time when you are a business
Hmm.
owner to teach this employee. Instead, you have a bunch of documents. You can create an assistant that will help guide your employee. And then already kind of it's that last mile that they can come to you with questions, as another example. If you're looking for something like this, constant, omnipresent
Yeah,
assistant
I wanted
that's by your
Jarvis.
side.
Yeah.
So that I would that you would get built. There's maybe, there's tools out there kind of here and there, but they're not going to be doing everything that you're describing right now.
Yeah, because I
So
remember a few months ago, or I don't know what it was, maybe a year ago. You remember how they like uncracked ChatGPT and it was like a unfiltered, do anything kind of ChatGPT that was out there. Like you could prompt it certain ways, like you were like the bad ChatGPT, like tell me blah blah blah.
right.
And it's kind of a fun idea, but it's hard. I guess it's hard for a small business to try to implement it because there's so many things that could go wrong, right? Like there's so many things that you're like, well, I don't know if this is going to work. Like, do we need to hire this? And I've seen,
You won't know. That's
yeah,
the
and you
simple
will, yeah,
answer, right? It's a new technology, and as a business owner, you are going to need to be comfortable with a certain level of unknown
hmm
anytime you implement the technology, and especially with new technology, right? So if you're comfortable having some of that little degree of unknown, then like this is the route to go because the possibilities are endless. If you're a type of person that needs to have 100% accuracy, and some fields do, some fields are like that, where there's absolutely zero margin of error. There's still error, human error, that's
sure,
still like 5%, but people have a lot higher expectations of AI
yeah,
than they do of humans, which is very interesting, human psychology aspect that I've discovered recently. So they're less forgiving of technology than they are of people. And that's where it needs to come in. You need to have a little bit of this forgiveness aspect, just like you would with an employee, with a regular employee. If you want to, again, coming back to building something like an assistant, then that is absolutely something that we can build
hmm
for you. You mentioned expensive. Expensive is very like subjective, right?
yeah,
What does it mean to be expensive? I have no idea.
yeah,
So that is like, you'll see, right? What does
yeah,
that mean? But that's something that can definitely be built. You probably want to start off with like one thing and then implementing another thing and then another thing, because that's also a mistake I see a lot of people doing, is they think AI is just like that was easy, like an easy button, and then it solves all of your problems, and you don't have to work, you don't have to do anything, you can just sit back and collect your paycheck. And it doesn't work like that, like
not
we
yet,
need
yeah,
people, and that's good, right? Like
yeah,
you need a person. So you want to start slow. So you do a thing, see how it's working, iterate, layer on top of that, then try that thing, see how it's working, and the process just kind of
it's
continues.
yeah, it's interesting too because like I'm not like I don't know coding very well. I don't know a lot of this, but I do. So I enjoy sports gambling just for fun. Like I'm not spending tons of money, but I really enjoy it because it's like a very interesting process because you're kind of consolidating all this information, trying to figure out how to execute it. And like, can you make a bet on this? And I've listened to a lot of guys and they've built models, and it's very similar to like they build an Excel model of like, okay, here are all the rushing yards. Let's figure this out and project the score. And I tried building a GPT that was like a model to understand like injuries and report back to me and tell me all this stuff. And it's almost like you need to think of the ideas to help execute a lot of this stuff too, because it's not just like do the work for me. You got to like kind of tell it and understand and give it the ideas. And I think that's what's kind of coming around, and you're seeing a lot of companies pop up with those ideas and executing them in certain ways. But it is hard. Like I found it really hard. Like I put in some information into this, I called it my super contest like chat bot, and I would ask it a lot of questions and tell me like, hey, what players are injured this week, or what like big news stories happened that I wasn't aware about. And it was pretty good. It would like kind of like sometimes get it right, sometimes get it wrong, or just give me like generic information like I can't tell you this because you can't use me for XYZ. Like can't gamble with it and you can't like predict stocks or anything like that. But yeah, it's just I find it so interesting because the more ideas you have and you figure out how to execute them, it's crazy. And I get it's so much fun. Like sometimes I just sit there and like, what did ChatGPT like? What's in the app store that all those things that people built that are public and you can use them. and they're super helpful. Some of them, like write a YouTube description and title for me with tags and timestamps and all this. And we're recording this podcast right now in Riverside, and it has a whole AI model built into it that after the show, it'll give me timestamps of every single different part of the conversation and write a description and a title for it's like, it's crazy what everything's doing now.
Yeah.
How have you like started when you started your business? You were in AI, you were helping other companies, but how did you help your own company with AI? Like, what are you using day to day? That I don't know if you're doing any outreach or how are you managing people? Do you have anything that's integrated in your company with AI?
Sure. So we don't have like a software that we've built for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. But
That
just
that is
you.
kind of going to be a step
Yeah.
beyond that, because I'm a bootstrapped company, right? Started like a year ago, so I myself can't afford the software, but I do use it literally every single day for pretty much everything.
Mm-hmm.
It marketing, definitely. Content creation, definitely. Ideation is a huge aspect for me. Coming
Can
up with, yeah.
no, sorry, I was just gonna say, can you tell me a little more about like the content creation? Because I've played around with the Canva plugin or some of these other plugins, and maybe my prompts are bad. They probably are, but I get like the weirdest photos from Canva spitting back at me, and I'm like, what is this? Like,
I don't like Canva.
No.
Personally, Canva is weird. So the way that I would use it is I write a piece of content, often with the assistance of Claude or ChatGPT, and then I say, okay, what image would be appropriate for this content?
Hmm.
Describe the image, and it'll give you a description, or it'll go on and create the image for you. If I don't really like the image, I will say, show your prompt. And I'll see exactly what the prompt was that it used. From there, I can tweak it and have it create a new piece of information. Another way is that you can also just like go on Google Images to get some ideas
Mm-hmm.
on how you or like Shutterstock or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So just to get your creative juices flowing on what kind of image is possible out there, and then have that same conversation with. I personally use Dali and ChatGPT. Those are like my go-to.
Okay.
There's some others out there, but they're much more for like very creative, artistic, not so much for like marketing
Mm-hmm.
content and assets. And then another way is then I'll take that piece of content and I'll pop it into something like Fotor. I think it's Fotor.com.
Okay.
Fotor.
Okay. I'm gonna
And
write that down.
there you have some additional elements. So for example, you can remove the background and then you can have some text overlay, or you can play around with the background, right? So just standard kind of design
Mm-hmm.
aspects. So that's one way that I'll focus on content for the creative side. Right now that Sora came out, especially, you're gonna have a lot of capability to do way more video stuff, right? There's websites out there already that you can start using video for, so you can
Mm-hmm.
put in some text and then it'll create like a montage video for you, which is great for social as
I've
well.
seen that before. It
Yeah,
it's like okay, like you can put in like a blog or something, and it will spit out a slideshow or something for TikTok or YouTube Shorts.
yeah,
Yeah, it's very much a tool, and it's kind of like when digital editing, video editing came along, like it was still editing video, and now it's like this tool where how creative can you be and how can you implement it into your
right,
business? And that's
right.
the hard. I still think it's really hard. Like
It,
you're like,
it
oh yeah,
is.
it's easy.
It is. And, for full transparency, it is not cheap to build your own software
Yeah.
by any means. Again, what's expensive, what's cheap is going to be, depending on, if it's a multi-million-dollar business, right, then maybe it is fine. But if, it's a solopreneur, it's might not be as affordable.
Yeah.
So usually where I recommend on that side is do a prototype. And a lot of our clients are actually consultants that have an idea of something that they want to build already.
Oh,
And so what we do is we build a prototype that helps them, or an MVP that helps already get some kind of traction where they can make money off of it, or they can go out and raise
interesting.
funding. And then from there, once they have those funds, you can build a much more robust SaaS product. How you go about even figuring out what you want
Yeah.
is the way that you would with your business when you create any kind of product, or you identify what problem are you trying to solve. You don't want to go off and create, I mean, you can go off and create something, cool or whatever, but what is your problem? Is your problem productivity, right? Because you're wasting too much time on one specific element. Well,
Mhm.
then you can go and figure out, or we can go and help you figure out, how do we cut down on that time that you're spending on this specific element that can be allocated elsewhere. Perhaps your problem is that you don't have the capacity for like reporting, right? And
Mhm.
you have all this information needs to be synthesized. Well, you can, that's the goal, right? That you can solve. But what is the biggest goal, right? Is there a bigger goal revenue? Is there a bigger goal users? Is your bigger goal funding? What is your bigger goal? And then from there you can begin to narrow down. You say, okay, I need funding. So in order for me to get funding, I want to create this product.
Mhm.
And I know that investors are looking for usage, right? So let me think of how I can create the simplest product to get the most users through the door. That's an example. It's the same kind of business process
Mhm.
that you would go through regardless. You're just now layering AI on top of it. Can it solve the problem? And it won't solve an like numerical issue, the kind of data analysis that we're not there yet. But anything outside of data analysis, you can absolutely figure out a way to do it. You just need to first understand what is your problem.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because I think like obviously if you're working with a company, you're going to learn a lot about them and go through all those steps. And for me, I've been really focusing on my marketing agency, and it's interesting because I've been trying like how do I implement this right now, like to outreach to people. Do I do XYZ, or do I email people, or do I do this? And ultimately, like the way I'm actually trying to do it is like, I love podcasting. So I'm like, this is easy. This is fun for me. I really enjoy this. So for me, it's like, oh, well, Riverside will manufacture a few clips that I can also edit and fix up, but then put those out there. And then maybe somebody will find this and say, hey, maybe I'll contact you for this, or same for you. Like, these clips will be on your social as well. And it's always interesting because some things are easier for other people, right? Like, I maybe hate writing emails all day, but I do like this. And I'm like, okay, well, this is easier. We'll make 10, 20 clips of this show, and maybe that will go out there. And AI's helped me create this content in a way, but not the full thing of content. Like, if we were just fake AI characters right here, that'd be crazy. It'd be like, oh yeah, Michael and Olga, we talked, we sat down today, but really we just like wrote each other a bio and like, oh yeah, you guys just have a 30-minute conversation about AI, and we'll see what happens. But it's just I'm still every day I'm like, what else can I do? I always want to do more in
Yeah.
the AI world. I used to have a plugin for YouTube to help me write content, but I found that it was a little like very ChatGPT writing, like too long and wordy. And I wanted it to be a little less of that. Where do you see kind of, the next 6 months? Because I feel like even if I said a year, it'd be like,
So
basically there's no more video anymore. It's
forget
all,
about it.
yeah,
6 months. We don't know what's gonna happen in 6 days,
I
right? Like out
know.
of nowhere, like OpenAI just dropped Sora on us. We didn't
Yeah,
know that. Before that, out of nowhere, OpenAI drops assistants on us that can just do so much more than we ever thought was possible. So you don't know. There's
I know.
absolutely
Yeah.
no way of knowing what is going to be possible. I would recommend learning as much as you can, and exactly what you're doing, right? Trying this, trying that, seeing, can I do this, can I do that, what are the limitations? So already getting into the habit of using AI, because more stuff is coming.
Yeah,
And then you're just going to be kind of left behind because you don't know what happened a month ago. That's already a huge deal, right? So
it really
staying on
is.
top of the information is important, and use AI to help you stay on top of the information. So
Wha-
you can go on, let's say you can try ChatGPT, for example. I'm not the biggest fan of Copilot on Microsoft
Okay,
Copilot.
I haven't tried it. Is how is it? Because I don't have
So
any Microsoft
it's like
accounts.
it used to be Bing, right?
Yeah.
And now it's a Copilot. So I find it hallucinates way more
Oh,
actually than
do they have more
ChatGPT.
restrictions on it than because
I think
it's
so.
ChatGPT, right?
I
It's
think
the same.
well, the underlying technology is GPT-4. So the
Okay.
underlying technology, but just like very much like the products that we build, right? On top of that, we
Hmm.
layer various rules and various constraints, and that's not a outrageous thing to do. It's something that is very commonly done in the industry,
Hmm.
and it's going to depend on what it is that the company wants and what it is that the end user wants, right? So I think they've restricted a lot, and I see a lot of the results being very superficial. It's really hard to get it to like dig deeper.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know what it is. I think they're trying to monetize on the ads. A lot of times you'll ask a
Oh,
question and they'll like give you the answer and then they'll serve up some ads. So I think that's probably where these restrictions are coming from.
interesting.
ChatGPT doesn't have ads, obviously. So definitely if you're a ChatGPT Plus subscriber, you can have it search the internet. So
Yeah.
that's one way you can use AI, say, search the internet, and you actually, you want to say, don't you say search, say research, because that gives you a little bit more deeper information.
Oh,
So
even
say
that's just a little
little
modification. Yeah.
tweak, little tweak, right? So you could say, um, research the top 5 headlines about large language models.
Hmm.
That's one example. Another thing is you can do something that people and marketers have been doing for a really long time is set alerts. Just Google alerts
Yeah.
for large language model, OpenAI, Claude, right? And that'll already get you way far advanced beyond your competitors in understanding what's going on because you're just going to get those alerts in your email,
Do you?
goes through them, and that's it.
Why is Claude so good? Because I found it and I was like, this is so good. I almost stopped using ChatGPT for a little while. Who made Claude? Like, where did Claude come from?
Anthropic. Yeah.
Okay, because I never hear anybody talk about it. So it's like Gemini and ChatGPT and Microsoft, but Claude was like sneaky good, really, really
Yeah.
quick too.
It's very it's very good. So Claude, they have they use different data for the training.
Mhm.
So that's one thing. They vetted, I think, their data a lot more than OpenAI had, almost as a response to OpenAI. Anthropic is really, really big on ethical use of AI and preventing misinformation. So it's a huge deal for them. I believe they were the ones that actually asked for like a pause on developing AI for a short period of time.
It's definitely going to get scary.
Yeah, but they really like realistically they did it so that they could catch up, right? But
Sure.
they did it
Yeah.
under the image of like we're the good guys. But still it is less likely to produce these like long-winded outputs. And I think
Okay.
a lot of it is them realizing what ChatGPT has done wrong and being able to iterate on that. It's the training data, and then it's a bunch of prompt engineering rules that they have in place. Wouldn't be surprised if one of the basic rules was use active voice. And
Yeah.
when you're responding, these are again like guardrails, right? That ChatGPT probably doesn't have. When you're respond in a concise manner. So it's very easy to program that on the back end.
Yeah. It's very, yeah. It just, when you
And
use it, you
you
see,
can do that yourself with ChatGPT also.
but you got to do that like extra prompt in there, right? Or create your
Well, you
own
can,
GPT.
so ChatGPT Plus, they have this thing called custom instructions.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
in my custom instructions, I just have it as a standing prompt
Hmm.
that use active voice. I have a list of negative words that I don't ever want it to use, right? Like revolutionary technology, this cover, right? Like all
Yeah.
these kind of like tropey marketing terms that it's been clearly trained on. And that's why I
Yeah.
resolved for them. So I'll have that negative list. I'll say respond concisely unless otherwise prompted to do so. So you can just have it as like a standalone evergreen prompt
Okay.
in the setting those custom instructions.
Have you ever tried any like the open source? I know like Grok, right? I think there's two Groks. I think there's like Elon's Grok and then like another Grok. And then I think
Grok
Apple just is Grok
Grok is a
bad?
disaster. It's a complete disaster. I think it was like trained on like ChatGPT outputs or something like that. It's just
Oh,
horrible.
okay.
Stay away from Grok at all possible costs.
Okay.
No.
Did
So
Apple release
some
one? Did Apple release like a
uh
open source? I feel
they
like everybody's releasing open
they
source to kind
did,
of like
yeah, a lot of them, but
speed
they
up.
did. I haven't tried it. I think it's
I
not
didn't,
like really available to the public yet, like
yeah, I
for
didn't see it
general
anywhere.
general public. Sometimes I get put into these beta groups because they see I use stuff a lot. Sometimes they don't. Um, so I haven't tried that one. There are a lot of really great open source models for more like specialized tasks, or if you're really, really trying to keep your costs down. Uh, but that's not as much of an issue nowadays that, ChatGPT and Anthropic, and Gemini, they have now drastically reduced what it's going to cost you to use an LLM for your business.
Yeah, it seems like Gemini. I mean, we're recording this. What is it? It's like February 27th. And I know Gemini just had, or whatever their image model is, had like a big fluff. Like, I don't know what something happened last week where it was just like producing all these people and like different skin tones that was like, here's George Washington and he was black or something like it was something weird was going on. And I guess they like stopped it. But it's interesting that like, this is the back end. They're trying to like make sure people aren't going wild and doing things. And sometimes the guardrails might be a little too tight on
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
But it's great
And
because
you
every
can
day it's
see it
changing.
in the prompts. So I don't know exactly about Gemini, but I know ChatGPT, they implemented like under the hood. So if you ask it to create a certain image of people, and then you say show your prompt, it's going to
Oh,
say create an image of a diverse group of people, of both men and women, of different nationalities,
yeah.
different genders, and whatever the prompt is. So they're trying in response to what they're seeing, the issues that technology is making. Sometimes they end up overcorrecting for it,
Sure.
absolutely. Uh, but that's the case with technology, right? You have to put it out there. You can't wait for it to be perfect. And just like
Hmm.
as a business owner, also, you can't sit there and craft constantly the perfect business plan and the perfect model, because then you're never going to get anything done and nothing is ever going to get out there. And there's got to be room for some kind of error. And
Yeah.
as a business owner, you're taking that kind of risk, right? Every single day. And it's the same thing with technology. There is going to be some element of risk, and then you iterate on it. But that's the whole point, is to iterate.
Well, I appreciate you coming on today. Um, this was great. I'm very excited. I wrote down some of the notes of like certain things because even those little prompts like research, don't search, like that's a big thing that could also help anybody.
Yeah,
And then even the prompt thing, that's super interesting that you could just like ask it what the prompt was so you can kind of like modify the prompt that was there.
exactly.
But I appreciate you coming on. And your website is lapsisconsults.com, correct?
Lapis
Lapis,
Consults.
sorry.
LapisConsults.com. Yeah.
And is there anywhere else anybody can kind of follow some of your work or anything like that?
Sure. So I'm on LinkedIn. It's just Olga Topchaya. I'm like the only one there in AI. And I'm also on Medium. The same thing, as the handle is Olga Topchaya.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much.
Likewise. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.